Beneath the modern streets of San Francisco lies a secret that doesn't fit into the city's official history, leaving minds utterly perplexed. For years, massive tunnels and chambers that have no record in municipal archives are not marked on city plans, and whose existence has never even been mentioned, were discovered completely by chance during excavations. At first, it was thought that these were overlooked masterpieces of Victorian-era engineering, but when detailed examinations were conducted, the scene encountered astonished both archaeologists and engineers. These structures possess stonework and brickwork far beyond 19th century technology. The walls were cut with millimetric precision, fitted together so perfectly that not even a knife blade could fit between them. The construction of such a project with the crude hammers, chisels, and simple lever systems used at that time was technically impossible. Even more intriguing was that these structures were not merely tunnels, but rather parts of a complex, multi-layered system. The way the tunnels connected to each other, their angles, depths, and distances from one another were not coincidental, but clearly the product of mathematical planning. So who built these structures, when, and for what purpose? And most importantly, why was such a massive infrastructure never mentioned in modern city records? The answers became increasingly disturbing as the true purpose and operation of the system became understood. The element that made the system truly unique and mysterious was the special conduits running parallel to the main tunnels, which were difficult to explain even by modern engineering standards. These conduits were not ordinary water channels. Each was an engineering marvel designed according to different pressure levels, with varying diameters and inner surfaces coated with special materials. Examinations showed that these channels were designed to carry tremendous water pressure. Wall thicknesses, connection points, and support structures were optimized not just for water to flow through them, but to be used as a controlled power source. One of the fundamental principles of hydraulic engineering is that the kinetic energy created by water in motion can be converted into propulsive force. The application of this principle, used even in modern metros, in such an advanced manner beneath San Francisco in the mid-19th century or even earlier, was astonishing in itself. However, what was truly remarkable was that these conduits were not just simple flow channels, but a complex network where each merged, separated, and provided feedback to each other at certain points. The system was like a massive vascular network circulating beneath the entire city, and each vessel had a specific function. Some conduits brought water in, some provided return flow, and others balanced pressure. Such sophisticated hydraulic design was too advanced to be explained by the known engineering knowledge of that era. When the tunnel floors were examined closely, an even stranger detail caught the eye. The steel rails, sleepers, and rubber wheels that come to mind when we think of rail systems today were not present here. Instead, there were specially carved guide channels in the floor, sometimes slightly inclined, sometimes perfectly straight. The structure of these channels seemed designed not for a wheeled vehicle to travel on, but rather for a platform that floated or moved by liquid pressure. At some points, these guide channels widened. At others, they narrowed, but always remained within a certain geometric order. Engineers suggested that this structure might have been used to create a type of hydraulic cushion effect. Pushing water upward from the floor with controlled pressure could lift the vehicle above it and provide almost frictionless movement. This was the same principle used in modern hovercraft, but the fact that it was achieved with water pressure 150 years ago was incredible. The marks on the side walls of the guide channels showed that vehicles leaned slightly into these channels to maintain lateral stability, but never made enough contact to create friction. Thus, the system provided controlled movement on both vertical and horizontal axes, and the combined use of these two controls offered an extremely smooth, silent, and fast transportation experience. However, for such a system to operate, rails alone would not suffice. Much more complex mechanisms were needed to control pressure, direct flow, and ensure safety. It was at this exact point that perhaps the most astonishing component of the system emerged: pressure regulation systems. At strategic points in the tunnels, valves and regulators far more complex, symmetrical, and precise than the standard municipal water installations of that era were found. These devices were not simple faucets or valves. Each had multiple mechanisms, adjustment knobs, and feedback systems. Metallurgical analyses showed that these valves were made of bronze, brass, and some unknown alloys. The composition of the alloys seemed to have been specially developed to provide resistance to high pressure and wear. When the internal mechanisms of the valves were examined, structures similar to piston, diaphragm, and spring mechanisms used in modern industrial hydraulic systems were detected. However, these were manufactured with 19th century craftsmanship, and each part fitted together so precisely that assembly tolerances were comparable to those of modern CNC machines. These valves not only opened and closed water flow, but could also adjust pressure in stages. Multi-stage regulators found at some points could control the speed and position of each vehicle separately by providing different pressures to different tunnel branches. This brought to mind a central command system. In other words, this system was far more integrated, automatic, and intelligent than people could imagine. Each valve, each pressure point worked in communication with each other and kept the entire network in balance. Even in modern automation systems, such coordination is difficult, but here it seemed to have been achieved through mechanical and hydraulic principles. The fact that the system had such a complex hydraulic infrastructure brought another question with it. Where did all this water come from, and where did it go? The answer lay in the massive reservoir chambers discovered deeper in the tunnels. These chambers were stadium-sized, with arched ceilings, almost reminiscent of ancient Roman cisterns. However, these chambers were not ordinary cisterns. Each had inlet and outlet systems, drainage channels, overflow prevention mechanisms, and even water level indicators. Niches and sockets in the walls showed that mechanical floats, level sensors, and automatic valve triggers once existed there. These reservoirs not only stored water, but also maintained the flow balance of the system, absorbed sudden pressure changes, and provided additional power when needed. Remnants found at the bottom of some reservoirs indicated that filtration or purification systems once existed within them. This suggested that the system did not have a single-use flow, but that water was cleaned and reused. A closed-loop hydraulic system is rare even in modern industrial applications, but the fact that it was implemented here 150 years ago was incredible. The placement of the reservoirs was also noteworthy. They were positioned at strategic points according to the city's natural topography, located to maximize benefit from gravity. This showed that the system's designers had deep knowledge not only in engineering, but also in geography, geology, and physics. Chemical analyses conducted on the inner surfaces of the tunnels perhaps revealed the most disturbing finding. The walls were coated with a special substance to reduce friction or withstand high pressure. This substance looked like ordinary plaster or mortar at first glance, but microscopic examinations showed it contained crystalline structures, unknown minerals, and chemical compounds that could not have been produced at that time. The coating was extremely smooth, almost glass-like in its shine, and was optimized to facilitate water flow on the surface. The friction coefficient was close to modern Teflon coatings. But even more interesting was that this coating was not only functional, but also durable. Despite more than 150 years passing, despite moisture, pressure, and the erosive effects of time, it was still intact and in place. Laboratory tests showed that the coating was applied at high temperatures, perhaps through a type of firing or chemical hardening process. Such a process was not possible with the known ceramic or metallurgy techniques of that era. Some researchers suggested that the crystalline structures in the coating could not have formed naturally, but were synthetically produced or processed through an unknown mineralogical process. This pointed to an accumulation of knowledge beyond the era, not only in engineering, but also in material science. But perhaps more disturbing than all these technical details was the fate of this tremendous infrastructure. According to sources, immediately after the system was discovered, it was quickly sealed by official authorities on the grounds of security risk and structural instability. However, this sealing operation had a strange logic. The most damaged, collapsed, or dangerous-looking sections were left open for examination, while the most solid, best-preserved sections with the most advanced engineering were immediately filled with rubble, sealed with concrete, and completely erased from city maps. This situation suggested the presence of another purpose rather than public safety. Why were the most dangerous places left open while the safest and most valuable ones were destroyed? Some theorists suggested that this was the concealment of a truth that didn't fit the official history, because the existence of these tunnels questioned the founding date of San Francisco and perhaps even the entire modern American narrative. If such advanced infrastructure existed in the mid-19th century or earlier, who built it? According to official history, San Francisco was founded in 1776 as a small mission settlement and remained an insignificant town until the gold rush of 1849. However, the workforce, materials, technology, and planning required to build these tunnels far exceeded the capabilities of such a small settlement. This meant either that official history was wrong or that these structures were the legacy of a much older civilization. Even more interesting were the signs that this tunnel system was not limited to San Francisco alone. Some tunnels extended far beyond the city limits, to the south, east, and even toward the ocean coast. When maps were examined, it began to be thought that the system was not just a local transportation network, but perhaps part of a continental-scale infrastructure. Similar tunnels, similar engineering techniques, and similar hydraulic systems had been discovered in different cities across America, but all had been quickly covered up, erased from records, and made to be forgotten in the same way. This brought to mind an organized information suppression campaign. It was as if someone or some group didn't want the existence of this infrastructure to be known, perhaps because these structures completely overturned the currently accepted historical narrative. Perhaps the American continent was inhabited and shaped by a much more advanced civilization, much earlier than official history tells. This civilization possessed an accumulation of knowledge in hydraulic engineering, metallurgy, architecture, and urban planning that even modern society has not yet fully understood. And somehow, this civilization vanished, giving way to new immigrants, new settlements, and left behind only these silent, dark tunnels. The hydraulic rail system extending beneath San Francisco is no longer just an engineering curiosity, but has become one of the most striking examples of alternative history research. According to the theory of this lost civilization, called the Old World, today's modern cities are actually built on top of much older, much more advanced structures. These structures have been deliberately destroyed, buried, or reshaped, and a new historical narrative has been constructed. San Francisco's hydraulic tunnels are among the most concrete evidence of this theory, because these structures cannot be explained by either Victorian-era British engineering or 19th century American industry. They are parts of a much deeper, much older, and much more mysterious legacy. And as this legacy continues to be hidden by official institutions, our chance of understanding our true history also diminishes. Perhaps one day these tunnels will be fully opened, the secrets within them will be completely solved, and we will see how limited what we know about our past is. Until then, the silent depths of San Francisco will wait as the quietest witnesses of a lost world.